So here's the thing. There's so many angles to this. Let's take the Yoel Roth angle first. As you know, Yoel Roth was in charge of who got banned on Twitter, and he seemed to be operating somewhat independently with at least one other executive, and maybe Jack Dorsey wasn't in the loop on some of this stuff. So we know that there was stuff happening outside of Jack Dorsey's direct control, or direct intervention or something, I guess. So that much we know. But it turns out that Yoel Roth, when he was, I think, working on his PhD, wrote a paper, and I'm going to be very careful about how I talk about this. Okay? He wrote a paper about the app Grindr. And I don't know what the bigger topic was, but the part we know about. He talked about the app Grindr, which is for gay people to do gay hookups. And he mentioned that there were underage people who were not legally allowed on the app, but they would sneak on. So there were a lot of young people under 18 on the app. In his paper, he asked the question, is it, should we only be working on getting them off the app, or is there a way to take into consideration that they're going to get on the app no matter what, and that maybe you should treat them in some way that's better for society? Is there any positive way to make it better keeping underage people on a sex app? Now, from a purely academic perspective, is that a fair question? From a purely academic perspective, which is the context, is that a fair question? Yes, it is. Of course it is. It's a fair question. Because the question is, how do you reduce harm to children? And I don't think he had a conclusion. I think he said we have to at least be realistic and say they're already being harmed. Is there anything you can do to help? All right. My sound is good at my end, so if there's something happening, I can't control it. So, all right, so somebody researched that and found out that that was in his background. And then Elon Musk actually tweeted it. Elon Musk actually tweeted that it explains a lot. It explains a lot that the guy in charge of who gets kicked off the system had written a paper questioning whether children should be on a sex app. Now remember, Twitter was also being accused of not taking seriously enough the pedophiles that were active on Twitter. So you see that this all ends up looking like the same thing. So I would like to point out that Elon Musk now holds the record for the most extreme firing of an employee I've ever seen. Sometimes you just get fired. Oh, we have to downsize. I'm sorry. You'll have to go. Bad enough. I mean, that's a bad day. But imagine being fired, and then within a week, the person who fired you outs you on Twitter as pedophile friendly. That is more fired than anybody has ever been fired. You can't get fired harder than that. Now, let me very quickly say that there is no accusation that Yoel Roth was involved in any way with any underage promotion of kids or activity, right? There is no evidence that he personally is friendly with any pedo stuff, right? I want to be as clear as possible. I don't think he's been accused, and there's no evidence I've seen that would suggest it whatsoever. You're worried, but that's a different subject. But it does seem to be true that someone with a documented background of being, let's say, flexible with underage stuff was in charge of making sure there wasn't any on, or at least he was one of the people who could have been involved in getting rid of the pedo stuff on Twitter. Now that's about as bad as you can, that's like the worst situation you can even imagine. But the fact that Musk actually tweeted that out, that's the most aggressive firing I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen anybody fired harder than that. That's as fired as you can get. Wow. So,